Hello and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. A historic meeting in Vilnius between the finance ministers of Germany and the Baltic states has revealed both unity and division in Europe's financial strategy. While the Baltic nations advocate for a robust €2 trillion EU budget to bolster defence, competitiveness and support for Ukraine, Germany warns of overspending. With us today is Paweł Wojciechowski, former Polish finance minister, to help us understand the stakes, the politics and the financial future of a continent under pressure. Welcome, Mr. Wojciechowski. Welcome back, should I say. Thank you for taking the time.
Nice to be here.
Nice to have you, sir. So, it's a lot of money, €2 trillion. I mean, how did this all happen? Why did these countries decide to get together and decide on this number?
Yeah, the amount for the €2 trillion is the amount announced by the Polish commissioner, Piotr Serafin, who's responsible for the budget. And this is just the commission proposal. Now we will have to discuss over how it will be spent. And of course, there's some pockets of money and defense is on the top of that.
That's defense of the European Union?
Yeah, this is defense. No, this is defense elements of defense instruments,
okay,
which are part of the multi-annual budget, for 6 years. But of course, there's a competitiveness fund, there's agriculture as always, there is a special partnership project and Global Europe, in general, to support different activities of the European Union countries. And of course, in the framework of this type of discussion, there's countries who are the frugal countries like Germany, and the more countries that are less frugal, that want to focus on defense issues, for example, the Baltic states, Poland, on the eastern flank, and kind of spend more. So a lot of countries in the eastern part of the European Union would like to support a much larger budget, whereas, for example, Germany, Netherlands are more moderate in declarations, and they say maybe that's excessive, or maybe let's think about it. Let's stay and negotiate, this budget.
Okay, so just if you can just help me understand where this money is coming from. Is it money collected through European Union countries, through taxes and so on, or is there some other fund for it?
No, this is just typical, resources collected by contributions from the member states. And let's remember that part of it, this money will be also repayment of the mutual debt for the fund Next Generation EU that was announced during the COVID times, and we have to repay the common debt. So this is new own resources of the European Union. So in general, you have to repay what the EU has issued the bonds.
Right.
And at the same time, finance a much larger budget. Of course, the frugal states wants to keep it up to 1% of the gross national product. Countries who are less frugal, led by France and Spain and Italy, wants to spend more. Okay. Of course, Poland is in between. And maybe some Baltic states, for example, are kind of in between as well. And some countries like Denmark used to be in the frugal camp, move into the camp of secure-minded countries.
Because they're feeling more threatened by
exactly.
Russia. Right.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. And how is this money divided up between the countries? Who decides who gets what, which countries get what, and how it's spent?
Well, it depends on the structure of the budget is very complicated. This common agricultural policy is one. It will stay pretty much in the same type of framework. But there is a competitiveness fund who encompasses a lot of other funds today to boost the European competitiveness. And there are some special envelopes, that are, for example, the Connecting Europe Facility funds for infrastructure, energy, will support those those projects, common projects of common interest project of European Union, for example, the cross-border projects of infrastructure and the like. And this is going to be distributed from Brussels.
Right.
But in addition to that, there would be an agreement with countries to spend the money as usually, where the member states will be responsible for spendings. In addition to that, of course, we have the money for Ukraine.
Right. Well, let's talk about Ukraine for a second then. This is going to be an investment in Ukraine's reconstruction or investment in Ukraine's defense, both?
Well, mainly for reconstruction, but of course that would be earmarked as money for Ukraine. But of course, for example, if you call it rail, they will have to build a new rail lines, connecting Ukraine, and this is like a new development, because in the past all the money that for infrastructure was spent among the member states, in excluding for example the accession countries, for example the West Balkans. Now there's a situation in which those countries could use some of this money, especially Ukraine and Moldova.
And is this a loan by the EU to Ukraine and Moldova, or is it?
No, this is a type of repayment mechanism that would be followed. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Why is Germany a little bit hesitant to approve this amount? You say they're frugal, yes, but how does Germany, or what would Germany prefer the number to be, and why? Apart from they're less concerned about defence, maybe, but
well, that is always coming up. Traditionally, Germany was very conservative. Some people say it's a frugal camp, but they are very prudent. In their own constitution, they have Schuldenbremse, that you cannot exceed, for example, the structural deficit above 0.35% of gross national product. And now, after the aggression of Russia on Ukraine, there is a change. Okay, this is a change that happened, and now they're spending more on defense. In 2024, they increase the spendings above already 2% of GDP on defense. They created a special fund of 100 billion euro of budget to support investments in defense. In addition to that, they are thinking about the new money that will be spent in the perspective of 2029 to reach the 3.5% for defense spending of GDP.
Right.
3.5% of GDP on defense spending, and by 2032 reaching 5%. So even before the deadline of 2035, that most of the NATO countries should fulfill the promise from the summit of The Hague.
Right.
So in fact, they are. It's also Germany is also in a situation in which they have it's the only country among the G7 countries that was stagnant for the last 2 years.
Right.
They're looking for the fiscal stimulus at the same time as they are also having this Zeitenwende to change the kind of approach towards Russia and towards Ukraine.
Understood. Now, in the last couple of minutes we have left, the Baltic states.
Yeah.
They have obviously played quite a big part in these discussions, in this meeting. They're receiving 5,000 German troops, I believe, for that. What's going on? What's their perspective on all of this?
Well, their perspective is very geopolitical. Okay, on one sense, you have to think that all the Baltic states, in terms of economy, are roughly five times smaller than the Polish economy. Polish economy is about between 5 and 6 times smaller than the German economy. So in fact, the German economy is about 30 times bigger than all the Baltic states' economy. So it's not about general economics, but it's about geopolitics.
Right.
This is a defense idea of deterrence in the building infrastructure among the Baltic states. After living away, kind of renouncing from pumping, gas from Russia and oil from Russia. Now, of course, the Baltic states are on the front line. like Poland is, kind of very close to the front line. And of course, this is a question of how to deter the Russians if they want to invade. The 4,700 troops of military, that is a commitment from the Germans, declared at NATO meeting and the NATO summit. So they, of course, deploy permanently the soldiers. It's the first time the Germans are deploying so many soldiers in the end of the country. So it's a geopolitical kind of idea driven idea for Germans to kind of rapprochement, actually having the good relationship with the Baltic states, have mutual investment projects in renewables, for example, on the Baltic Sea, on offshore windmills. So altogether, it's pretty much, very kind of coherent idea that is actually benefiting as well Poland, because stronger Baltic states, stronger deterrence in the east, the Eastern Shield that was kind of very much supported by Prime Minister Tusk, it's something that we're looking for. Deterrence on the east against Russia, at the same time the build-up of the economy and competitiveness altogether within the EU framework. This is something that we're looking for.
Understood. Now, just finally, in the last minute that we have, President Donald Trump, Ursula von der Leyen, announced a new trade deal, I suppose you'd call it, which includes tariffs that Europe, the EU, will have to pay if it exports to the US. That puts some pressure on European, or potentially puts pressure on the European economies. Can they afford this kind of number in their budget, bearing in mind that tariff pressure?
Well, definitely the largest hit would be the German economy, maybe by 2%.
The cars.
Cumulative, and not the Baltic states or not Poland, maybe Hungary as well, paradoxically. So we need, fiscal stimulus for that, and this fiscal stimulus is something that is projected in the German by the German Parliament. I think about 170 billion euro of new investments for next year in the budget. So in fact, Germany wants to move from the situation of conservative stance on the fiscal policy to invest in the economy, on infrastructure, defense, and climate-related.
Which is what they're doing now.
This is what they want to do, and this is what they want to do to support the economy, despite the tariffs,
Despite the tariffs. Mr. Wojciechowski, thank you very much indeed for sharing your analysis with our audience.
Thank you very much.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of World Talks, but as always, lots more going on, so don't go away. Goodbye.